What's up everyone, Soldier First Class here. In today's mission, I'm here to clear up some misinformation about the relationship between Final Fantasy VII Remake's development and Final Fantasy XVI's development. There's a bit of intel to go over, so stay tuned soldiers, it's time for our next mission. After my video about the Final Fantasy XVI reveal rumor, I got a lot of comments about how Square Enix should just focus on the Final Fantasy VII Remake and not worry about the next installment. And I think a lot of these feelings come from a place of misunderstanding. Not to say that any of you are wrong, as some valid points were brought up, but from a business standpoint, not much really changes. With Square Enix, you have a massive company with different divisions and teams all developing games under the Square Enix brand. That means that it's not one team or a set of teams handling all the projects. And video game companies literally do this all the time. Sony Santa Monica is likely working on the next God of War game, while another Sony studio is working on the next Horizon Zero Dawn. It's the same with every major filmmaking studio as well. Multiple projects at the same time do not mean a waste of resources or a cause in delays. Square Enix used to be divided into 11 divisions, but recently began the process of cutting it down to 4. With this consolidation, more projects are being held under each division, but the teams have remained the same, and some are even hiring more staff. While it appears that teams are being burdened with more projects with less staff, that's not actually the case. As of 2019, Square Enix had over 4,600 employees under their brand and are a massive multimedia company with several different production units. They create merchandise, books, movies, manga, video games, and much more. All of these teams are separate and don't affect the productivity level of the others. Naoki Yoshida, also known as Yoshi P, was the head of Business Division 5, but is now the head of Consolidated Third Development Division. This studio handled Final Fantasy XIV and its expansions, and turned 14 into one of the most successful games and MMOs in the world. It's rumored that with Yoshida hiring for a new core next-generation project, that he's the director behind Final Fantasy XVI. So what does this mean for Final Fantasy VII Remake? In all honesty, that's a really good question. The answer is it doesn't really mean anything. Like I said before, Square Enix is divided into 4 divisions now, with Final Fantasy VII Remake being part of the first development division, which is overseen by remake producer Yoshinori Kitase. The team dedicated to Final Fantasy VII Remake is already working on Part 2, along with polishing and preparing Part 1 for launch. This has no effect on the other parts of the company, and resources aren't being pulled for the rumored Final Fantasy XVI. I think a lot of the problem is that people are seeing the delays and thinking, well, Square just needs to put all the resources into 7 Remake and not worry about any other projects until it's done. That's why all their games get delayed. Unfortunately, that's not how game development or business works. As we saw with the CyberConnect 2 split, more hands does not always make a better game. Each project has a dedicated team, and they hire for that team specifically. You don't fill out an application to work at Square Enix and then just get thrown to whatever team they feel like. You apply for a position not only with the company, but also a position in the respective division you're applying for. So if they need artists with experience with Unreal Engine 4 for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's the position you're applying for. It's the same exact thing with Yoshida's new project. If you're signing up to be an artist, that's the position you're applying for. Then there's Final Fantasy XV, which a lot of people are comparing 7 Remake to, but there's also an explanation behind this issue as well. Final Fantasy XV was plagued with development issues, starting all the way back to when it was originally conceived as Final Fantasy Versus 13. Mid-development, the game switched directors and engines and went under several rewrites and changes which caused massive delays. After the release of Final Fantasy XV, it left a bad taste in the fans' mouths, and until Square knocks one out of the park, it will continue to do so. But as we said before, Final Fantasy VII Remake is under Development Division 1, not Luminous Productions. Those games are both in entirely different situations when it comes to development. I will say this though, and this is where I agree with some of the arguments here, marketing for these games needs to change. Square suffers from being overeager to reveal titles before they're in a marketable state. We saw this with several titles over the years, including Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy Versus 13. They've announced these games too early and then go silent for years at a time. Now I do understand that they have investors and they have certain yearly requirements that need to be met, but at the same time, it took them 4 years to really start showing anything substantial about the Final Fantasy VII Remake. However, I've also seen the argument of marketing 2 Final Fantasy games at the same time, and I think those are kinda null and void. Final Fantasy VII Remake received a huge showcase at E3 2019. At the same event, Square Enix also showed off the Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers expansion. These are 2 different mainline Final Fantasy games, both receiving marketing at the same time, so it's not really a big deal for Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XVI to receive simultaneous marketing. especially since we know that 16 is nowhere near show ready. We shouldn't worry about productivity when it pertains to other projects, and let's not forget that nothing has even been confirmed yet. Yoshida has wanted to direct a non-MMO mainline Final Fantasy, make it a high fantasy entry, and is now the director of a new next generation project. That's all the evidence we really have at this point in time, which is still nothing to worry about, and even if they announce it tomorrow, we still have nothing to worry about. Overall, I wanted to clear up some things in the community because it seems like there's a lot of fear when it comes to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. They can justifiably market Final Fantasy XVI while working on the remake, and it will have no bearing on the release of either project. They're entirely different teams and entirely different divisions, all working on separate projects as well, and if they did announce it in February, we all know that it will take years to complete, so marketing likely won't ramp up until the second part of the remake has already been out for a while. So what do you think, soldiers? Besides Final Fantasy VII Remake, what Square Enix projects are you excited for? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to omni-slash that like button. Let me know in the comments section below if you're excited for the next installment in the Final Fantasy series, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell to join the ranks of Soldier today. And for all the latest Final Fantasy VII Remake news, rumors, and trailers, I'm Soldier First Class, and I'm on to the next mission. Later, guys.